time, that's when it's really going to hurt you. I mean, they've gotten away with it, especially in this game. I think they got away with it. The Caps had some really strong pressure in the third period. And if it wasn't for Gibby, this isn't a shutout for sure.
How many times have we said that this year? If it wasn't for Gibby. If it wasn't for Gibby.
A lot.
And
Pretty much every win.
I'm not trying to rain on the win either. Like, I feel like that's where my head's going because the Ducks are winning right now. They've won, I believe, 7 of their last 9. So they're back in playoff contention. They're in second place in the division right now. They just leapfrogged up right behind Vegas. But it's just kind of curious. They don't have anyone left off this roster that is not playing besides Patrick Eves that's injured. There's no reason for this type of stuff in the third period, and that doesn't go well when you get outchanced 14-2 in your own barn, up 3-0. And this is a team with tons of firepower. You can't sit back like that. Eventually, it's going to come and bite you. I hope that there's something that the coaching staff or something in the leadership in that room, they know that Bob Murray loves so much to put in that locker room, is able to kind of tweak a little bit or fix a little bit of that. Because I know it's common, to have, the game when the teams are up like this. It doesn't just happen to the Ducks, right? It happens to teams everywhere. They're up, they don't take chances, they sit back. But it just seems maybe because we watch them so closely that they just take a beating in the third.
I think it's because we watch them more closely. I feel like you said, if we watched some other teams more closely, you would see it probably more often, and it would be more of a reoccurring thing. But one thing to note that you brought up earlier too is Ovechkin was kind of just off in this game. I mean, he was still his normal self. Had a lot of shot attempts, had some decent chances, but he wasn't looking that dangerous for a guy who's leading the National Hockey League with 40 goals right now. I mean, I was expecting a lot more from him and really Kuznetsov, and arguably for most of the game, they were non-existent in the Capitals' chances, and it was a lot of other guys getting things done for the Caps. Obviously, they don't get any goals, but I'd have to look at who played against that line, those two players the most, but somebody either shut them down or it was all on John Gibson.
I think a lot of it was Gibby for sure, but I mean, Ovi did have some missed chances. But that third period that ice was so tilted that I think you really have to put a lot of the credit on Gibby to make that game a 4-0 win. Is the fourth goal would come from Nick Ritchie on an empty netter, which is nice to see another one of Henrique get an assist on that too, right? So he ends up getting 2 points on the night. That line, that was an even strength empty netter. if you want to chalk it up as something special,
they're back.
But they're back. All we need is Kasha to get in the mix there with the goal scoring, and they'd be all set.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of time. I mean, we kind of knew they would regress a bit because they were dominating. They were the only line for the Ducks that was generating offense for about a 5 to 10 game stretch there. Closer to the trade deadline too, because people were talking about Ritchie, and you and me had looked into the fact that Ritchie was actually playing pretty well over that stretch. But they haven't really needed to be called on as much now with Rakell, Perry, and Getzlaf playing so well, and kind of the reemergence a bit of Kessler, Silfverberg, and Cogliano. We didn't see them too much in this game as we did in the last one, but they were still okay. They were a pretty decent line in this one, a little bit better than what we've seen for the majority of the season, which is nice to see that they're trending upwards.
No, it's true. So that puts a cap on the game. I mean, I shouldn't even say that. No pun intended, right? I mean, 4-0 Ducks win.
It's like a
15 shots to 4. Yeah, it was. It wasn't like this exciting run and gun game I expected, from the Caps. I mean, maybe that's the Ducks' defensive system that kind of clogs them up. Yeah. But I really just feel like it was Gibby, and that was the reason why this game wasn't closer. And the Ducks didn't look like they needed to take a ton of chances, but the Ducks get out of it 4-0. They leapfrog there in second place. Hard to believe it's only Gibby's second shutout of the season with how well he's played, but considering the way that he's had to gut out wins in games, I guess it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it does, and a lot of times he doesn't get a lot of help in those games where he probably should get a shutout, and then the Ducks have a bad turnover, and it ends up leading to a goal. That seems to be the thing that happens to John Gibson a lot, unfortunately. But, I mean, it's great for him. I mean, he deserved the shutout in this one for sure. He was by far the Ducks' best player. I think you can argue a bit for Rickard Rakell and how well he played in this game, but there's no way it's a shutout or it's even this far of a scoreline if John Gibson is in the net playing the way that he's playing lately. I mean, he's won, is this his 6th straight win now for the Ducks. I think they had said in the broadcast it was 5 straight wins for him, and now it's up to 6, which shows you how well he's playing as of late, and this will help boost his numbers. He was already at a .925 save percentage, so I'm sure this is going to help, and it's going to boost his goals against average a bit, which kind of adds to what we talked about on the last show with his maybe in the discussion for the Vezina if he can continue to play like this.
Yeah, but you got to get those wins, and he's got to win out, right? The rest of them to be in the conversation. Yeah, pretty much. He's got to get over 35, 40 wins. But a guy that I want to talk about, now that we've wrapped the show and kind of went through a little bit of the stats, I got to talk to you about that fourth line real quick.
Yeah.
And I should have said those guys, meaning Chimera and Kelly. They are not playing as many minutes as maybe we thought that Bob Murray and Randy Carlyle would trust them with. Grant has obviously been trusted along this lineup all over the place, as we talked about him last game because he had a couple of points. What's your take so far on Chimera and Kelly now that we've seen them a bit? It's been a week.
I liked their first game. I think they were better than what I expected them, especially being paired together on the same night. I didn't expect Chris Kelly to be in that game, and then they were both together, and it wasn't as bad as you would expect. But, in this one, Chimera ends up playing 655, 5-on-5, and not much more in all strength. I think he had a couple, about 20, 30 seconds on the penalty kill, and then Chris Kelly ends up playing 737, 5-on-5. So they weren't getting a lot of opportunities, and it seemed like that trust that Bob Murray had talked about for this line wasn't really there in this game. And I don't want to say it's unfair, because I don't think they've played bad. I don't think they've really been a sore spot for the Ducks. Obviously not a line that's going to generate a lot of offense, but I guess you could say, kind of to sum it all up, they're kind of what you expected of them. They're not going to be flashy. You're not going to see too much of them. They're only going to play 6, 7, 8 minutes a night, and they're going to really just do what they're out there to do: forecheck hard, play physical, play against the other team's fourth line. But the only thing I think it comes into question is once you get up against those teams who actually have a skill fourth line, and then you've got Chimera, Kelly, and Grant against a line that actually can put up some offense.
I don't so much mind Chimera. I just haven't really noticed Kelly at all. At all.
One chance
every time he's on the ice and I hear it, just don't see anything.
Yeah. But did you really expect to hear a lot about Chris Kelly and how he's contributing to the Ducks? I don't think anybody really did, especially when he was first announced as being signed. I think a lot of people thought he was going to start in the American Hockey League, and then he ends up being, I guess you could say he's essentially a starter now for the Ducks. And I didn't expect him to do much. I guess he really hasn't done much of anything right now, but he's not a guy you're going to look to make a difference on your team.
You know what was funny is when I was on my way back home, I was traveling for the day that he got signed by the Ducks. Okay. And I was like, I just saw Chris Kelly pop up on my notifications, and I'm like, I didn't know who that was. I know there is a Chris Kelly. I know he played for Boston, but I didn't think they would go out and sign him. For whatever reason, I missed the news that they were talking about signing him. And I was like, oh, maybe an AHL guy that they re-sign now, or they're going to put this guy in their system. And I open it up, and I'm like, wait, what? He played for Canada in the Olympics? Who is this guy? I had no idea who that guy was. So I guess when everyone said he's known for speed and Chimera's known for speed and it's going to make a difference in the fourth line, I'm just kind of like, where is he just going too fast? I can't see him. I know it's a bad joke, but honestly, I just haven't noticed him. The guy that I'm kind of just wondering where he went, because I felt like he was an energetic player as well, was JT Brown. I know we're not going to see Antoine Vermette crack this lineup. Yeah. I can't imagine in any critical games down the stretch here, maybe if someone needs a break. But what's your take on JT Brown's situation there?
Yeah, I think, I saw a couple tweets today talking about, how is JT Brown out of the lineup when Chris Kelly is essentially taking his spot. And it is kind of weird. I feel like what we've seen from JT Brown so far is definitely a lot better than what we've seen from Chris Kelly. And of course, it's a small sample size on Chris Kelly. And it kind of really is a small sample size on JT Brown as well. But I still think he adds more to the lineup than what Chris Kelly does. And I'd honestly love to see a line of Derek Grant, Jason Chimera, and JT Brown just to see what they can bring. I agree with you that I don't think Antoine Vermette really finds his way into the lineup, because we all know the only thing he really brings to the team is the ability to win faceoffs, and that's not really pivotal enough to put him in the lineup on a regular basis, especially when you have guys like Derek Grant who provides a little bit more, like JT Brown, like Jason Chimera, guys who can actually do a little bit more in the lineup. So yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. I'm a little bit disappointed he's out of the lineup because I liked what he had brought so far, so it'll be nice to see if he actually gets back in.
Yeah, man, he sniped King Henrik when he was in town, if you remember that.
Yeah.
In that bad game by Henry Lundqvist. No, I don't think anyone did. I don't think JT Brown expected to score on that shot. But no, it'd be nice to see him get back and slot it in there. And then we got to just continue to pour on the praise. I can't talk enough about how impressed I am with the way Fowler's turned his game around.
Yeah.
Getting to complement his talent with other talent in Brandon Montour. And now, if we can just not talk about the third period, they were having a hell of a game through the first two periods, but the entire Ducks team went to sleep in the third, so they all got crushed and caved in. But that Montour-Fowler pairing, they need to stick with that. And I feel like this Montour thing, we talked about it, I think, last show or show before, about him being a restricted free agent this summer. He's just adding dollars to his check with how well he's performing right now.
Yeah.
He really is.
Every game he seems to be getting better and better, and we brought up a chart that we put out on the Forever Mighty account from Michael McCurdy that showed that his ice time has just substantially increased over the last 20-25 games, from the point where he was actually playing less than Kevin BX on a night-to-night basis, and now he's playing at par, if not more minutes than Hampus Lindholm. And even you look tonight as well, I mean, the two guys who played the most ice time for the Ducks were Cam Fowler and Brandon Montour. At even strength, Cam Fowler played 22-19. Brandon Montour played just over 20 minutes. And you got Josh Manson and Lindholm sitting around 18-17 minutes. So it shows you the trust that this team and Randy Carlyle is putting in this pairing. Now, in the last few games with their ice time, is really the Ducks' number one pairing, even with Lindholm and Manson together, which kind of shows you how well they've been playing together lately. Didn't have as strong as a game when you look at the numbers tonight, but I still thought they were creating chances, and I thought they looked good on the power play like we had mentioned earlier. So I think it's good. It's nice to see the Ducks have two strong pairings without even having to go out and acquire a guy at the deadline. I mean, everybody really talked about before the fact that you have top four defensemen in your lineup. It's just necessarily finding the chemistry and putting them together. And that chemistry between Lindholm and Manson has always been there. And now you see the chemistry between Fowler and Montour. It's really encouraging going into the playoffs and even into the last bit of the regular season.
No, man, it definitely is. And just kind of a little piece on them not bringing another defenseman in. The rumor was that Murray was in on McDonough, and the asking price just got too big. And how that would have reshaped this roster by adding another defenseman. What we would have lost in the forward end of things, you can only imagine. Like Kasha was a piece of it.
He definitely
for sure.
Would have been a piece.
It would have been Kasha for Nemestikov, and that would, who knows how that would have gone. But safe to say the Ducks probably made the right choice on that one, not pulling McDonough over for that giant haul that was made by the Rangers in Tampa. Moving on here a little bit, I got to talk to you. We'll stay on the defensive side of things. I have to talk about my favorite Ducks player, Hampus Lindholm. I'm in arguments all the time with friends, all the time on the internet, with people that don't like Hampus Lindholm and feel that he's not one of the top defensemen in the NHL that's up and coming. I mean, I'm not going to say he's there with Carlson or with Drew Doughty or PK Subban. But it's been said by several pundits, Dmitry Filipovich, I think Travis Yost has said it across, and it's hard to disagree with. If he was consistently putting up 50 points, 52, 53, even like between 50 and 60, he's in that Doughty range. We could be talking about a Norris trophy for this kid. Are we undervaluing him, or is that about right? I kind of wanted your opinion on that before I give mine.
Yeah, I think we notice him a lot more than a lot of people do, and I mean, that's the same with John Gibson, where we talked about on the last show with his possible inclusion in the Vezina discussion, and I think the same thing goes for Hampus Lindholm. And by no means do I think he's in the discussion this season, But
right.
if he can put up, 40, 50 points in a season and come